Hey, did you all see Troy on Colbert the other night? Huh? Speaking of finding your call in life, I mean, John Mellencamp probably doesn't need to be out there doing what he's doing, but he clearly has a message to share, and he's doing it, even in his crabby, old-looking self. He's doing it, and I just love that, and I thank God that you are there and supporting him. It was a beautiful, beautiful time. So today we're talking about rebels with a cause, and that we're all rebels with a cause. We're going to take a look at a text from Matthew's Gospel, the 5th chapter, where Jesus says, You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to God. And then here from Paul's letter to the Philippians, he says, For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill God's good purpose. There's a theme here. It's you. That's the theme here. You are the light. You are the people, the source, the energy that God will work through to make a difference in this world. So how about that? How about that in the midst of this news? You know, studies show that people throughout the U.S. right now, particularly the Midwest, are sad. Sad. It's kind of a sad day out there today. It's called seasonal affective disorder. These are people who have normal mental health, or not so normal, I guess, here, but throughout the year. But somehow, when those nights get longer and the days get shorter, these folks struggle with depression. We may sleep more. We may eat more, particularly carbs. We may want to spend time vegging out in front of the TV. We don't want to leave our houses, and in generally, we're less active, not only in body, but in mind and spirit as well. This sad condition impacts about 1.4% of people in Florida and 9.9% of people in Alaska. So it doesn't take the scientists to figure out that perhaps this sad condition is directly related to sunlight and our lack thereof. Many people who do not get enough light end up sad. You know, in Indiana, they say this year it's even worse. We got 8 to 10% of us who are sad. And some say it has been complicated by the flu epidemic. The flu epidemic. So not only are we kind of down and out anyway in the dark and dreary days, but we have also started freaking out that we're going to die from the flu. Now, yesterday I went to go see a movie, and while I was in this movie, someone sneezed. And I am not kidding. You felt the anxiety in the theater kind of go up like this. And I am not kidding. The lady who was sitting in front of the guy who sneezed moved. So not only are we sad, but we really don't want to spend time with each other either. We're afraid of each other because we might get the flu. We're suspicious of people who didn't get the flu shot. And we're generally sad. Now, even if you've not been clinically diagnosed, who in this room has not had one of those dark mornings when you've had a really difficult time getting out of bed, or you've had a dark and cold day, perhaps like today, that you just didn't feel like getting into the day emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically? And in light of our text today, I am wondering, how do we work these two things out? For there's probably a good percentage of us here today that are sad, but then we have Jesus saying this to us. I am pondering that Jesus assumes a heck of a lot here, doesn't he? He assumes that we know exactly what it means to be the light of the world, and not only that, he assumes it's something that we actually want to do. To be a light or a beacon to other people, to put it out there. He assumes that we think this is a good idea, even when we're sad. This Jesus is not the season of shining. This is the season when we take our little lights, which are very little right about now, and we don't hide them under a bushel. No, we put them under a blanket. We put them behind a door. We just hide ourselves away as much as we can. So today my question, assuming that a lot of us here are sad, is can anything good come through this sad, cold, dark season? Can anything good come through this now, where we are today? Well, Mary Papalegodos, easy for me to say, is a coach and therapist who believes that actually this is the prime time for us to be people of the light. After a lifelong struggle of living with bulimia and having 2 brain hemorrhages, she said, "I know what it is like to be lost and in the abyss of darkness with no slither of hope or light shining through anywhere." I'm sure some of us in this room can relate to that. Perhaps we've not had bulimia or a brain hemorrhage, but we've had different situations in our life where we find ourselves in darkness, where we find ourselves in such darkness that we don't see the tunnel and we don't even think about the light at the end of it. Some refer to this as the dark night of the soul. What Mary Papalegodos says is it is actually the time for the emergence of the soul. See, it's in that dark place where we must linger, where we must have a willingness to sit, because that's where the soul speaks to us. And we must realize indeed that the soul is not our circumstances. The soul is something so much more. This article reminded me that we all have different experiences. And these experiences, these dark nights of the soul, can be used in one or two ways. We can either be victimized by it, or like Mary, we can find a way to grow through the darkness of the experience. For Mary realized that everything she was going through, every struggle, every pain, every hardship, she identified as a gift. It was a gift. It was a gift because she decided to use the experience to grow through it, that she knew she could grow through struggle. You know, we all have choices with the dark circumstances of our life. We can stay stuck or choose to go deeper into ourselves and in the end find that we indeed are more than the darkness. If we sit and pause in the dark places of the soul, there eventually we will find the light. And it is indeed a light that overcomes the darkness. And Jesus promises, even when we don't feel this light or experience it or feel like we have it, it's there. And it's been there since the beginning of time. It is this light that lives in each and every one of us and those who will come behind us and those who have come before us. And it is this light, this energy that transforms darkness. It is this light, it is this energy that can overcome the darkness. I've come to realize that this past month with all these rebels, all of them were really, really good at working in the dark. Because they were people who had a willingness to sit in the darkness and to overcome the darkness in ways that the divine light not only shined through them, but continues to shine through them. Rebels do not become victors on the top of the hill. But the rebels we have studied found the light in being brought to their knees and to the place where they questioned it all. Rebels see challenges as a gift because it asks you to go deeper into yourself than you want to. And it's there that you find true life. The common saying is what? What doesn't kill you can only make you stronger. Well, there's truth in that, my friends. What you overcome in life makes you richer in every way. When you are in that dark place looking for a way out of your hardship, you are faced with two choices. You can either give up, or look around. Look around the dark place and look for the sliver of light. Of the rebels we have looked at, I see all of them as people who were willing to sit in the darkness. I mean, look at St. Francis, the guy we looked at first week. He was a man who had anything somebody could want, human possible, right? He had all the wealth, all the possessions, all the education somebody could want. And it wasn't until he went into the darkness of being needy and poor that he found his true reason for living. And in fact, we see St. Francis as a saint today, not because of his wealth and possessions, but because of his willingness to live in the light. Hildegard von Bingen was excluded from formal structures of the church, sent into the darkness. But it's there in the darkness, in the dark night of the soul, that she found that God would not leave her alone, and that God had put in her a creative spirit. And it is that spirit, that energy, that light in her that lives on through her songs and her writings in stained glass. It lives on today because she figured out in the darkness that she was a co-creator with God. Martin Luther King, well, he could have stopped. He could have stopped, and all would have been fine with him being an academic and being a preacher for his own community. But he couldn't do that. He couldn't do that because he saw there was still too much darkness in the world, the darkness of racism. He knew he had to make it through that darkness that was touching the whole of our nation and the oppression of all people of color. He had to be willing to sit in that and, yes, even die for that. That encouraged his light and a life that continues to shine as a beacon today. A beacon for those who are struggling today. For those who in this country continue to struggle with oppression, people of color, dreamers, all different kinds of people still look to that man who had a willingness to sit in the darkness and be a light for all of us. Last week we looked at St. Theodore Guerin. She overcame the challenges of poor health to come to the United States to be a nun and a teacher. But remember, when she got here, the journey was only just beginning. She had to travel another 3,000 miles from the East Coast to get to Indiana, or however many miles it was. And when she got here, she found that the St. Mary's of the Woods was truly the woods. And this woman in poor health and poor condition did not have the resources, did not have the kids, did not have all the things that they said she would have, but she didn't give up. She kept making her way through the forest until she built St. Mary's Academy, another dozen schools throughout the Midwest, and it was a call and a way of being that her light continues to shine in the world today. I think the greatest gift that we learn from these rebels is how they do indeed deal with the dark nights of the soul and how they work through the darkness to be the light. As I said before, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world," indicating that we have what we need, that we may not be these great saints, we may not be Hildegard, we may not be Theodore Guerin, but we share in the same light that they had. We share in this divine energy that can shine through the darkness. It is within each and every one of us. We don't have a choice. It is the light that we can ask to guide us through the dark nights of the soul from season to season, from sunshine to darkness. It is a light that will overcome what would seem to be impossible. It is a light that can overcome pain and suffering for the world, and yes, even for you. I have to admit, my friends, I marvel at the work done down at Roberts Park United Methodist Church and Central Christian Church, who is our big give this month. These are two church communities that have found a way to shine the light through the darkness into the lives of the homeless people who live in downtown Indianapolis. There is no magic wand that community has that will make the approximately 1/4 of their population that worships at Roberts Park every week suddenly have a job and the mental health needed to live a rich, full life. There is no magic that in providing a bed for one night, all those who sleep at Central Christian Church will indeed have a place to call home in a day or two. Yet, week after week after week, these two churches step into the darkness of the lives of the homeless of Indianapolis to shine just a little bit of light into the darkness, to bring hope in the form of a warm gym or a hot meal on Super Bowl Sunday. There is no magic light that they can hand this population. It's simply the desire to walk the journey with brothers and sisters and children who are experiencing darkness, who are oftentimes sitting in darkness. I also marvel at those who work in hospice and walk the long, dark journey with those passing from this life to the next, or the parent who does not give up on the light with a child who is lost and struggling with addiction or hopelessness. Yes, I marvel at all those who shine light into the darkness of what on the surface may appear to be hopeless. Even more, I marvel with those who are actually homeless, those who are actually terminally ill, struggling with addiction, struggling with hopelessness, depression, anxiety, and being overwhelmed and tired by this life. Those who continue to live in that dark place, yet somehow continue to believe that there is a light. There is a light that works. I marvel at all those who continue to seek a sliver of hope, a crack in the door, and to believe indeed that this situation is not my final place. Jesus says, all who are weary and overwhelmed, I'm there. I will show up in the smallest sliver of hope, and I will show up in light. And it'll be there. Maybe just a little bit of it, but soon you'll experience something different. Mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. I will in some way find a way to overcome your sadness, because there is the light that was there from the beginning of time, that will be there until the end of time and the beginning of time again. There is that light that can shine through the darkness of our lives, through the darkness of our lives. There is a light that can shine through the behavioral, the betrayal you'll struggle with. There is a light that can shine through your limitations, through your lies, through your challenges. There is a light that can and will shine through all the things in this world that overwhelm you. Yes, indeed, there is a life, but my friends, it's not around it. It's not over it. It's not under it. It's through it. It's through it. Light shines through the darkness. Light shines through the hopeless experience. Light shines through addiction, through divorce, through pain. Can't go around it. Can't go over it. Can't go under it. Only through it. Will you pray with me? God of love and light, there are those in this room right now who are experiencing great sadness, who are in the darkest hour. They're lost and afraid. We ask, God, that you remember us. Even when we don't experience you with us or sense your presence, remind us you're there. Even when we seem to be surrounded by darkness, remind us there is always light. Help point us to that little sliver of hope, little crack of light that overcomes the darkness of our lives. Remind us, God, that you never leave us to face our trials alone, that deep within is a light and a love and a hope. Help us through the darkness and remind us. Can't go over it. Can't go under it. Can't go around it. We have to go through it. And you're there with us. Help us, God, to connect with this energy that sometimes doesn't make sense, with this light that warms the heart and lights up the future. Light that will energize our spirits, our lives, and our very being. Light for each of us, enough for the whole world. Light and life eternal. Amen.